I think you mentioned sleep and the importance of how you can lose weight while you're sleeping when you have a good sleep routine.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Running off cortisol is, I think there's a guy that has made it his life to educate people about how he lost weight. He tried every single diet. He tried all these different things, and it wasn't until he learned, I
Yep.
think, to meditate and breathe and to
Yep.
be less stressed that he lost weight. And he was
Fascinating.
morbidly obese, and he became quite a fit man.
Everyone's always talking about weight. They've been on holidays, you know, they want to set new fitness goals or health goals for the year to help them reach specific targets. But I've also noticed there's been quite a bit of trend, especially on social media. There seems to be two opposite opposing parties at the moment without sounding political. One is advocating the idea of being the perfect weight for your age and for your body type. But then you've got this other group that's advocating that, you know, it's okay to be happy in your body. And if you're obese, it's okay to be happy as well. So I just thought it was a really important topic because I feel like it could be giving the wrong message to a lot of people who might be dealing with a lot of health complications because of being overweight. So talk us through some of the different things. Talk us through the different trends and the seriousness of either of both of them, really.
Okay, so there is an optimum wage that we should be at. And if you look at, I'm always going to go back to nature. So if you look at the animal kingdom, rarely do you see an obese wolf or, you know, an obese tiger. So it is not very natural to be obese. So what is the definition of obesity? Is it over 25 on your BMI? That's one measure of obesity. I think it's over 25 index. So that we use. And another one that is commonly used is to measure the waist circumference as well. So, I mean, obviously, based on your height, that would change.
Right. Okay.
And also gender.
And also what?
But
Sorry.
and also gender. So,
Oh, okay. Right. Yep.
so it would. There's definitely recommendations, and I would endorse those recommendations that we should keep within a certain weight range because as we put on more weight, our health complications are so much more worse, so much worse as we put on more and more weight. So, for instance, in a lot of cases of type 2 diabetes, 80% of people are obese.
Right.
And I think 70% of people, I think it's got heart issues associated with weight gain.
Wow.
Other things that we know is associated with weight gain is blood pressure.
Right.
But also some forms of cancers as well are related to our weight. So there's actually quite a number of issues. As you know, it's also about feeling good. You can't be 200 kilos as a woman and find it easy to get around and do things easily.
And I think, yeah, and I think that's the argument right there is that it's okay to be, I mean, everyone has a different body. We all have different shapes and sizes. Some are big boned, some are smaller, some are petite, some aren't, some are pear shaped, some are skinny, thin, pencil. Everyone is different. And I think you sort of nailed it in the idea that it's okay to be happy to a specific degree in your appearance and how you're looking, but where does it sort of go beyond that, you know, the shades of gray of crossing the border into being really, really unhealthy and then being told, no, it's okay, you can be happy at that weight. Don't worry about what's going on the inside. Just be happy with it. It's a you know, so many shades of gray.
Absolutely. So feeling good about yourself, we're not trying to make people feel bad about themselves, but it definitely is a health risk and also a mental health risk to be more obese.
Yeah.
Be within the normal range. Being too thin is also a problem, but being too big is also a problem.
Of course, they both have their problems, right?
Absolutely. So if you're too thin, it's telling you something about your body and how it's functioning. Also the same as if you're too overweight as well.
So talk us through some stats that are associated with, you know, the issues and the problems that do come with excessive weight gain.
Well, like we said, there's cancer risks, there's a blood pressure. Blood pressure has a very direct correlation with weight gain.
Yep.
So quite often, if you're high blood pressure, your doctor will ask you to lose weight.
Yep.
And diabetes, I think the number of people with diabetes is just increasing and increasing every single year. That can't be right.
No.
I don't know how many people were diabetic before 1800. I mean, obviously there wasn't as much food,
yep,
but it hasn't always been that way. There have been times of plenty as well.
And what do you think contributes then to excessive weight gain? Because it has been shown, specifically in Australia, compared to, say, 20 years ago to today in 2023. We'll go off 2023 because it's still early 2024, where they did kind of release some stats and information that was explaining that in that 20-year period, we have crossed that threshold into a very overweight society compared to where we were sitting 20 years ago. And we're almost per capita for our population, which is, you know, a pinprick in America, but per capita, we're almost overtaking the overweight stat of Americans, which is quite shocking, I think, personally. So what do you think is contributing to that? Is it health, diet? What is actually contributing to that stat?
So, I mean, everything contributes, the toxins in our environment, but I mean, obviously what we're putting in our mouth is very, very important. No time in history that has been recorded anyway have we had so much access to food, poor quality food, admittedly, very processed food that gives you a lot of energy but no nutrients. And so what does the body do with that? As soon as you've got an excess of glycogen, it starts to be converted and gets stored as fat. What the body cannot use will be stored as fat. So what we eat, what we can't use, it's turned into fat and stored in different areas of the body.
Wow.
So we've got an abundance of food, but we're starving of nutrients, and people are not eating how they should appropriately be eating. We've got the highest consumption of not only sugar, but meat and dairy. Maybe in our grandparents' time, we might have one roast a week, one fish day, one roast. Nowadays, we're having it 3 times a day, morning, night, dinner. So our diet definitely contributes to that. And we think it's all normal because the media are pushing it as being health foods. You know, there's all these fad things that you can do. There's all these processed foods that are very, very high in energy, but very, very low in, you know, in nutrients, and also toxic sometimes. So the body has to work harder to get rid of these things. Toxins also will be cased into fat to get it out of the system unless it can be processed immediately. So the more toxins we have, the more likely the liver has to function harder. If your liver is already under pressure, it can't do its job as well. So it will just push it in somewhere until it can deal with it later. So a lot of toxins are stored in fat.
Right, that's really interesting. So do you think a lot of that can contribute to the type of lifestyle? Let's use Sydney alone because that's where we live, and it is a very fast-paced city. Do you feel that a lot of people are eating out more as well, and that's contributing to it because they're not really monitoring the food that they're eating and the nutritional food that they should be eating by having fresh fruit and veggies at home?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we're all guilty of it at some level, of just doing the fast foods because everyone's busy. No one's got time anymore. It's much, much easier to go out there and get your coffee shot, grab a bacon and egg roll, and off you go. But, I mean, going back to grandma's time, we'd sit down, we'd probably have some porridge, which is high in fibre. So why I'm going to bring that up is fibre actually mitigates the effects of insulin spiking.
Right, okay.
So less likely to be stored as fat. So you really want to have diets that are high in fiber. But if you look at our diets now, a lot of the processing takes away fiber. So,
Right.
we have the, I won't use any names, but breakfast cereals that are high in sugar and high in anything else, very, very low in fiber. You're spiking insulin. There's not the fiber to mitigate that insulin spike.
Right.
It's got lots of chemicals, colouring chemicals, preservatives.
Yep.
We'll say, the glycophosphate that's been grown into the crops.
Yep.
Might I add the genetic engineering that's gone into it, so that it's actually harder for the body to recognize it as a natural food. So all of these things muck around with our body, and so it's harder for us to process that. What I want to make clear is, in Chinese medicine, weight gain and obesity is an accumulation disorder. So what I'm saying is, you're accumulating, you're not cleaning out the stuff, you're not processing the stuff. It gets stuck in the body quite often as fat and sludge and everything else, which is stored within the body, in the cells, in the interstitial area. You put it on into every part of your body. Yep. It's not lean, so it can't be able to get rid of these things, so the body just puffs out.
Right. And that explains what you were talking about before with the toxins, the outcome of it, having those toxins in your body, because that then leads to some form of health complication, right?
So, if you want to think of it visually, it's like a hoarder that never gets rid of anything. It just all gets stuck in the house.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we need to do is start cleaning out that house and making sure there's airflow, opening up the windows, dusting the place. That's what we need to do.
Right. Okay. So we'll go into talking about ways that we can sort of target that. But what other things apart from health and diet do you think contribute to weight gain as well? Like, lifestyle, hormones, what sort of things, are we all sort of suffering from?
So I want to make the point that not all weight gain is the same. There's different types of weight gain. So even in our Western world, we have, for instance, the hormones, which can affect how much weight you put on, but how much fat you put on. Women are naturally estrogenic, so we have fat storage in certain areas. For instance, when a woman becomes pregnant, her estrogen spikes, which means that she puts on fluid and she puts on fat in preparation for the baby. So these things can make you store weight very quickly.
Yep.
So that's one thing, is the hormones, and the changes in the hormones can make you put on weight. But also fluid is another form of weight gain. So a lot of people might come in and they'll be quite heavy.
Yep.
And you might give them something that just makes the kidneys work stronger in Chinese medicine.
Yep.
Or just use some herbs to help you drain fluid. There are certain herbs in Chinese medicine.
Yep.
And all of a sudden they'll lose a lot of weight within a week or two. So because fluid weight is actually quite easy to get rid of.
Right. Okay. Would that come under the umbrella of inflammation as well, like fluid retention in the body? Or are they two separate things?
I wouldn't directly say that it's got a correlation or one-on-one correlation.
Yeah.
But quite often, if your kidneys are weak, there is some heat in the body or inflammation as well.
Sure.
Because we call it deficiency heat in Chinese medicine.
Okay.
So we have a kidney yin deficiency, which can cause inflammation-like symptoms. A lot of autoimmune diseases in Chinese medicine are from a kidney yin deficiency.
Right.
Or you'll see accompanying kidney yin deficiency.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily have that correlation.
Right.
It can get quite complex, start talking about things and how it's like, you've got how many ways can you paint a picture?
Yeah.
You can mix it all up. But there is a correlation, but not necessarily a very direct correlation.
Sure. Okay. So
we've got the hormones that can cause weight gain. We've got fluid retention.
Yep.
I want to talk briefly about insulin resistance and increase, for perimenopause in women.
Yep.
they can make their waistlines kind of explode, you know, and also fatty liver disease. So if you see people that's got a kind of like really rounded barrel-like kind of torso, I'm not going to say all the time, but I'd, for instance, if they're putting on weight in that area, then I'd look at the liver function and I'd look at the kidney function just to see how strong it's working. I'd double check to make sure they don't have fatty liver disease. I'd make sure that the kidney. And so stress will make you put on weight too. So stress really hammers the kidneys. Makes it work. It's burning the midnight oil. So you just don't have as much energy to push things around. Your kidneys are your reserve of energy. So if you've got none, how can you make, you know how I was talking about the hoarder in that house? If you've got no, how can you clean the house?
True. It's a good analogy.
Yeah, I just came up with that one. I thought it was pretty good too.
I think it's pretty good off whim, off script. No, it's a good way to visualize the idea of and maybe not everyone would think that way. I mean, you and I know we've sort of worked and dealt with health and industry, me chatting with health experts, you being in that industry, but I know that you need to cleanse the body, you need to flush things out. And it's commonplace, even if you went and got your liver and your kidney treated, they flush it out. They have to flush the toxins, they have to flush anything that's stagnant and stuck in there. And most of the time, and that experience comes from my father-in-law, who's been dealing with kidney problems for a long time, there's foods that he just can't eat now because those foods create a toxic backlog in his system and he has to go and get it flushed out. So it all kind of just, I don't know if it contributes to some of his weight gain, probably because a lot of the foods that he can't eat anymore are those weight gaining, very popular foods like hamburgers and chips, which he's been told don't have them anymore because not only is it toxic for your kidney, but you're putting the weight on as well. So it's just kind of sitting there stagnant. So it makes sense that you need to kind of flush it out to get rid of the toxin.
Well, in medicine, one of the major functions of the kidney is to actually empty out the lymphatic fluids as well, is it not? I think so.
I think you're right.
So the waste is to. So there's one other thing I want to talk about, which is the weight gain based on hypothyroidism, where your thyroid isn't strong enough. And so, but in Chinese medicine, we say hypothyroidism is a kidney yang issue, kidney yang yin issue. So as well. So, but that they are the major different types of weight gain. There is also in Chinese medicine one other factor, which is when we eat, we don't have a very strong digestive system. And so a lot of phlegm and dampness is kind of digestive residue from food and drink that we have is not processed properly, and so is just left in the body. And that accumulate, if it becomes worse, not only is it the damp, but it congeals and forms phlegm, so that the phlegm lines the digestive system and it also lines the body. And so it's just like
different foods, can they trigger that as well?
Absolutely. So, certain foods are easier to digest and certain foods are much harder to digest. So one of the hardest foods to digest is actually meat and fat and from animals. So we say that takes a lot more digestive power than to eat a grape.
Right. Okay. So I know you're not condoning any type of diet, but just to sort of put it into layman's terms. So the processing of, say, fruit and veg is a lot easier for your body to break it down faster and get rid of it, where the meat stays in the system a little bit longer. So it does, if you eat a high meat diet, so I'm not saying to anyone out there, don't eat meat. This is for someone eating high meat diet. You're saying it can stay stagnant in the body and then it can turn into fat because your body doesn't know what to do with it. It's not kicking it up.
Absolutely. So anything you don't digest becomes a toxin which needs to be eliminated. And meat is actually quite dense and requires a lot of gastric acid and digestive power in order to break down into amino acids to be rebuilt into amino acids to be used by the body.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah.
So people think, oh, you eat meat, that's protein that gets absorbed as protein. No, you have to break it down into amino acids first, which
Yeah.
means you need protease, which is the enzyme to extract protein from your foods. So if your stomach acid isn't, and if your digestive power isn't strong enough, then you've got a problem.
So what sort of things would you recommend then? Because if you're someone that loves to eat your meat and you want to eat it every day, what foods can you sort of match that with? Are there specific vegetables that provide the sort of the what did you call them? The enzymes to help break the meat down faster? Is there something you can eat with it to help it?
So there's always little tricks, and you can take digestive enzymes, but ultimately you can't trick the body that much. You can add digestive enzymes, but you're mucking around, and there's no real definitive science about how much digestive enzymes you should take, or you can drink apple cider vinegar or whatever to increase the acidity of the body, or you can take betaine hydrochloride to increase your stomach acid. You can do all of those things, but I just think that the best thing you do is just eat according to what you need, and it's not a cow every week.
No, and it's interesting you say that, because it kind of leads on to the topic I then want to talk about, such as keto diets and things like that. And that kind of leads into that, because it goes back down to our hunter and gathering days, where even if you were eating meat, your tribe was eating meat, you had to hunt that meat, and you didn't always have a successful hunt. Therefore, you might have only been eating meat maybe once a fortnight, once a month, depending on how good the hunt was. You might have just been eating the veggies and the fruits and the things that were able to be easily gathered by the women of your village. And so our bodies, they are our ancestors. Our bodies really aren't designed to eat that meat every day, because that's I guess that comes down to the basic needs of how our bodies used to process food, and it wasn't meat every day. I mean,
it wasn't.
Couldn't have done it. That leads me onto keto, because that's the concept of keto.
And I'm not knocking it. Keto can be good.
Yeah.
But and there are some people that have got amazing digestive power, but there's a lot of people that don't as well. So I'm not saying that this is wrong for everyone.
Yep.
I think this works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And if we're just talking about weight gain, or are we talking about long-term issues such as cancer risks as well?
Yeah.
Because there's that as well.
A lot of factors. Yeah.
There's actually a study which was one of the most comprehensive studies that was ever undertaken. It was called the China study, which studied thousands and thousands and thousands of different diets across China. So one of the outcomes of that study was that they realized that the more animal protein that you ingest, the more common your incidence of heart disease and cancers.
Yeah.
So it's not.
It's interesting you talk about that. I think they may have featured some parts of that in a very well-known documentary, Forks versus Knives. And
yes, I do.
Yeah, and they included studies from other countries as well about specific diets where it was less meat, more veggies, and how a lot of it had studies coming out of China about how the Western diet and how it influenced a lot of parts of China, and it did increase a lot of their heart conditions, specifically cancers, because of that Western diet, just the introduction of a lot of fast food chains. The rapid difference between health in China 40 years ago to today was so different. They hardly had the cancers, they hardly had the heart disease, and now they do. I mean, that speaks for itself, really, doesn't it?
Yes, and I know a lot of people that go on carnivores say that they lost, so many kilos in so many weeks. But what I'm talking about is sustainable diets. So, I don't know if there's been any long-term outcomes of carnivore diets. I haven't really researched that.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite extreme. You look at our digestive system, you look at the whole digestive system from our mouths to where we excrete, feces. We're not the same as a carnivore. Our digestive tracts are much, much longer.
Yep.
Our inside, we don't have the same teeth that a carnivore have.
Yep.
in actual fact, our closest relative to the structure is, I think, the apes. So
Yep.
what is the diet mainly? It's mainly fruit.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
100%.
So if we were meant to be carnivores, our digestive tracts would be a lot shorter so that the fermentation doesn't occur, so the putrefaction is less likely to occur.
No, look, I think it makes sense. And if you're an animal owner, I'll use me as an example. As you know, I have quite a few cats and they have a very high carnivore diet. They eat nothing but meat because that's what they are. Their bodies are designed for it. They're highly acidic in their stomach. They have hardly any alkaline. So they're designed to eat meat because they can break it down. The acid in their body breaks it down. But humans, we don't have that. And it's like you said, it might be great to do 5 days of carnivore to cleanse your system, but is it sustainable to do that long term? There's no way, because as you mentioned, we need the fiber, we need the microbiome from all the fruit and veggies that we're supposed to eat in order for us to have optimum gut health. It's I think we do as people need to look at something that's long term, something that's going to help us achieve our health goals long term rather than short term.
I'm with you.
Yeah, no, I look, it makes perfect sense. And so what sort of recommendations can you give to somebody? It doesn't have to be a patient, it could be anyone, who is looking for some advice moving forward in helping them sort of create a sustainable lifestyle for them, whether it's with Chinese medicine, some acupuncture, anything to sort of help them lose weight and get their optimum health.
Well, obviously the diet is crucial. You can't, if someone comes to me and says, I want to lose weight, I feel like I'm, putting on too much weight or putting it on all of a sudden, or ever since I've reached my 40s, my waistline has ballooned out. There's a number of things I will definitely look at. Firstly, you need to have, quite often when I'm assessing a person, that they'll be quite deficient. You know how I said you need to have energy to clean your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we need to make sure that we have that energy. Okay.
Right.
Second, we need to have a good cleaner. So in our body, the good cleaner is our liver and
Yep.
our kidneys. The liver helps metabolize excess hormones and get rid of them. So, the fluctuating hormones, especially with women that are in their cycles, they balloon out, go back in, balloon out, go back in.
Yep.
If your liver's working stronger, you will have much, much less of that kind of shift in weight.
Right.
And if your kidneys are stronger, you can excrete and clean the body out. And also, from a Chinese medicine perspective, your kidneys fuel the rest of your body. Okay,
Right.
so it gives it that cleaner, the strength.
Yep.
Obviously, you need to look at the digestive system and make sure that you are digesting what you're eating. So, I mean, I know that the carnivore diet's really popular now and the keto diet's very popular. I'm going to stress again that it is very hard work to digest that. You do get residue. I personally don't think it's a long-term sustainable way. I'm never going to tell people not to. I'm just going to tell you the research on that kind of stuff, like such things as the China study, but there's many, many other doctors that will also, and studies that have also said the same.
Right.
So make sure your digestive system is strong and there's also things that you can do, for instance, declutter, but also they say that doing regular exercise just gets the energy moving. So we need to really make sure that you're not just sitting there in front of the TV hoping to lose weight.
Yeah.
What do they say? A well-hinged door doesn't rust. Correct. Yes, so we need to move it, get the barnacles off. Okay?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
So definitely food is number one.
Yep.
Exercise, yes. Look at your body and balancing your body. That might be a bit harder when you're not dealing with this kind of stuff all the time.
Sure.
I would say definitely go to your specialist.
Yep.
But look at the diets. Make sure you understand that fiber has a massive role in regulating the spikes in insulin so that you do not use that spikes in insulin and store the excess glucose as fat in the body. So look at the glycemic index, but make sure you eat fiber.
Yep.
I think they would be them. Oh, stress.
Yeah.
Make sure you you get enough sleep and you're not stressed, you regulate, because you can't lose, or it's harder to lose weight when you're very, very stressed. The body is in a different phase of its, it thinks it's kind of running away from something. You're not going to be losing weight. You're going to be grabbing onto anything that you want to and keeping it in your body when you're under a state of stress. Have breaks from eating, because then your insulin sensitivity becomes stronger. So not constantly eating really helps.